Hello and welcome to what I like to call the Hitchhiker's Guide to Solus, where we'll be taking a look at the universe and lore of Battleborn. While the game does feature a campaign, much of the lore is tucked away elsewhere, through external resources and character lore challenges. So today, I want to dive in and display the information in a readily available and informative format. Today, we're talking about the Eldrid. At the end of the last episode, I said we'd be talking about the Degenerate, but due to not having a clear release date of the Thrall Uprising DLC, or any sort of real details on the future Degenerate character, I felt it would be jumping the gun a little bit. I may have to make some addendum videos at some point in the future, but I'd like to avoid that as much as possible to keep things consolidated. The Eldrid are the fantasy-themed faction of Battleborn, featuring space elves, dwarves, and other fantastical beings. They're all tied together by their close ties to nature and magic, and the idea of fantasy characters in science fiction is always fascinating. However, unfortunately for them, being fascinating wasn't quite enough to keep them from being consistently screwed throughout the centuries. Before proceeding further, I need to warn you that this video is extremely heavy in character lore spoilers, though I will be putting up annotations so you can skip past sections you may want to keep unspoiled. Up first, we have to talk about something I briefly touched on in episode 1, the planet Ekkunar. Ekkunar is the quote-unquote Eldrid planet in Solus. It's almost entirely green and organic, with occasional arid savanna areas. Almost none of the planet consists of desert or polar caps. However, the planet is not quite some lush desert paradise. It's completely shattered and held together by ancient Azanti technology. As such, the planet is riddled with treacherous falls and requires constant maintenance from the native Ekkunar dwarves who dwell below the planet's surface. I mentioned the Azanti briefly, but they seem to have intensely close ties to the Eldrid. Not only are there ruins scattered throughout Solus, particularly on Bliss and Ekkunar, the Eldrids are descendants of them and still have bonds to their technology and ruins. It's possible to see this in the unique Eldrid technology present on Ekkunar. There's Amidin Observatory, which was constructed with Eldrid magic and science to observe and study the Varelsi, or there's the Codex of all Eldrid knowledge that relies on organic trees to store centuries worth of information. After the darkening of the planet Ashteni, the Aelfrind and other Eldrid races fled to Ekkunar to resettle it. The Aelfrind are like space elves and make up the core of the Eldrid races. However, they were not the only refugees seeking to settle Ekkunar. The UPR made a concentrated and militant effort to settle Ekkunar, but were pushed back by the Aelfrind and their other Eldrid allies. With the primary Eldrid setting and its history established, we have to take a look at the Eldrid characters and their lore to establish a better picture of the varied peoples of the faction. Our first character is one of my favorite in the game, Alani. She hails from the planet Akopos, a planet entirely covered in freshwater oceans. According to Cleese and Alani's challenge, the lifeguards have given up. The planet was attacked at some point in the past with a colloidal suspension of virus-grade nanorobotics, but over time, the natives integrated and controlled the virus, causing the bioluminescence we see in Alani and possibly being the reason for her healing water abilities. However, almost everything on Akopos was killed, including the Roa, Pendle's people, not by the Varelsi, but by the Degenerate. They sought out a source of water, but didn't realize the planet was inhabited until they had already begun siphoning its water. When they were attacked by the natives, they didn't have the resources to handle a full invasion, so Ambra and the Silent Sisters were instructed to neutralize all resistance as quickly and cleanly as possible. They boiled the entire planet. Alani had just snuck on board to the Degenerate ship. As such, she witnessed her people and world burn and die out in an instant. Alani then proceeded to kill every one of the powerful Silent Sisters with torrents of deadly water, almost totally destroying the Degenerate ship in the process. Ambra only survived this vengeance against her war crimes by exchanging her ship for her life. Alani's other challenges shed some light on her thought process now that she has joined the Battleborn, and how Akoposian culture works. It's clear that the society focused more on the bonds of its peoples and their beliefs than their lives. As Alani remarks on the loss of the planet, its sea lives on in the members of my order, so I guess it's just me. I am that sea. And another entry expresses that Alani carries with her a powerful ocean guardian with her, the Amula, which can be seen when Alani uses her ultimate. On a far more lighthearted note, Alani desperately seeks out the friendship of her new allies, Galilea in particular, but struggles a little bit, as can be heard in her Helician Hellraiser's lore. And it's a nice sign that despite her tragedies, Alani is still swimming onwards. On a much less elegant or graceful note, we have Boulder. Boulder is an Ekkunar dwarf native to the underground of Ekkunar. His kind is responsible for maintaining the Azanti technology, keeping the planet together despite its fragmented state. These Ekkunar natives have formed a primitive militia known as the Woodsworn, led by Boulder. Despite their low-tech equipment and less than stellar intelligence, they're still a powerful fighting force, and it's said that Boulder will sometimes split off from the main force to destroy entire battalions on his own. Boulder stands out from the other Woodsworn in a number of ways, including his weapon of choice. Most of the others use clubs and spears, but Boulder's handcrafted runic axe is believed to be forged with ancient, secret Azanti techniques. It draws strength from Ekkunar itself to aid the bear-loving dwarf in battle. From repeated mentions in lore, Boulder truly admires and loves bears. He tells Nova that not only was one his friend, but he used to ride it into battle, decimating all who stood before them. Lastly, we know of a deep connection between Boulder and another Eldrid Battleborn, Thorn. We'll talk more about Thorn later in this video, but for now it's important to note that she grew up on Ekkunar. While exploring, she came across Boulder and began to silently observe him for some time, before trying to steal plants he grew in his garden. In the process, she was poisoned by a mimicaris vine. Boulder discovered the sick girl and tended to her for some time, becoming somewhat of a grandfather figure to her, and also pulling himself out from solitude. To this day, he keeps the thorn she was poisoned with braided in his beard. Next up is one of the Eldrid's, and in fact Battleborn's more bizarre characters. Discovered by Miko, who we'll talk about later, Kelvin was initially a series of countless microscopic organisms that congregated in clouds and mists. They seem to share a hive mind, but not as multiple beings, instead seeming to make up a single being, hence the singular name Kelvin. While not initially capable of communication, Gunnar Cleese was able to utilize a universal translator in junction with Kelvin's strong telepathic abilities. However, even with the ability to communicate, Kelvin was still very much just a cloud, albeit one with the ability to transfer energy on the cellular level, which is how he is able to use ice abilities. With the help of Miko and Phoebe Hemsworth, they decided the only suitable frame for Kelvin would be that of an Azanti Guardian. While they were successful in finding an old Azanti Guardian skeleton, and Kelvin was successful in bonding with it, there remained the issue of shape. One discussion in Poker Game later, Miko's decision was decided upon, giving Kelvin his primal shape reminiscent of the Dragons of Bliss. Following Kelvin, we have Melco Hyeniota, Melco. Unlike the others of her faction, she is not strictly Eldrid. In fact, the mixed child of a male human researcher and female Aelfren refugee. Raised among scientists and relief engineers, she was largely adored by the crew of their vessel and had a largely happy childhood. However, 5 years after her birth, her parents were part of the extraction effort on Fahalim and were planetside when it was unexpectedly darkened. It goes without saying that she fucking hates the Varelsi and the Degenerate. The Eldrid Observers, the high governing body of the Eldrid, took note of the young girl, her physical abilities, and her extreme drive. During a mission to the Eldrid planet Codex, she was able to recover a biogauntlet called the Fist, and soon began using it. The weapon linked neurally, and it was only a matter of time until she wore it at all times, and it has now bonded to her permanently, grafting itself to her arm. Additionally, she obtained a modified UPR machine pistol, so it would now fire extremely volatile toxic projectiles. With her rage, abilities, and equipment, she is one of the Eldrid's deadliest operatives. During the Battle of Penarch, the last planet to fall before the Solus conflict, it is said she killed over 200 Varelsi skulks and Skaven before defeating a swarm of 7 conservators, destroying 4 so badly they were unable to dissolve. Melco was one of the first to join the Battleborn, and seems to have a close relationship and friendship with their leader, Captain Trevor Galt. From there we have Miko, and things get kinda weird. Miko is a bud of a planet-sized fungal organism called A. Mycolopria. These buds take on humanoid shapes to put their companions at ease, and they share a hive mind, though some are notable and unique despite this. Miko has expressed a desire to help and heal from first contact, soon joining Eldrid recovery and medical missions. It seems to heal because it admires the universe in any form it takes. Whether Solus falls to the dark or remains illuminated, it will continue to exist and thrive. It is capable of healing using tiny spores, but it is also more than capable of defending itself. Its quote-unquote kunai are actually poison-laced fibrous spikes that it generates from its hands, a trait it developed after a nasty run-in with the degenerate spy Diondi. Miko is an extremely cryptic character. Even when we get lore about it, it's often obscured by the mushroom's odd speech patterns and vocabulary. Lastly, we have the only actually elf from Battleborn, Teshka Alasamorn, commonly known as Thorn. While I previously mentioned they were like space elves, that's simply in their lanky physical appearance and extreme agility. The Elfren are also mainly known for anger issues and extreme fixations on vengeance. Thorn is no exception and has plenty of reasons to hold a grudge against the Varelsi. Thorn was the last Elfren born on their native planet Eshtani before it was darkened. Many Elfren relocated to Ekkunar, where she bonded with Boulder, as I previously mentioned, and gained the nickname Thorn. Boulder treated her poisoning while also training her in natural skills and survival. She also showed an innate ability to utilize natural energies, and when paired with the legendary Eldrid bow Keshek, she's a force to be reckoned with. The bow itself has a lengthy history, known for killing Varelsi, trading hands, and being lost and broken before finally being recovered and used by Thorn. So there you have it, Battleborn's Eldrid lore. There's a lot here, but if you have any questions or comments on what I might have missed, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'll make sure to answer any questions I can, and those answers or comments on what I missed will go in the description as an addendum or appendix of sorts. Next time, we'll be taking a look at the Scoundrels of Solus, the Rogues. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you liked this or learned anything from it. So much work goes into these lore videos, and dropping a like or subscribing would be a huge honor. If you want to support me or these videos directly, my Patreon should be in an annotation and in the description. Until next time, beautiful Battleborn.